But I fixed that in time for our presentation. So we don't want to show this to humans. One of the CSS3 selector syntax pieces is a negation operator. So you can say, show me everything except for this one particular this one particular element that might be a child of the query that I'm looking for. So we're going to work with the 652, but I've also done this for things like the relator attributes in added entries, where again, not many of our records have the subfield for. I wish more of them did, because they're actually really valuable and would be really useful for display purposes, but that's just the nature of our mark data. And when you do have a for subfield, you don't really want to display it, because who wants to see AUT or PRF showing up in your record display? So in this case, I'm removing the relator attribute from the 700s. It's a tiny bit more complex, but not much. So we're doing the same thing again, hiding it, giving an ID to the table row that's being displayed. Got our label on the left-hand side, and then our search for the data field tag equals 700. Within the script, the first thing we do again, remove the hide me attributes. We're going to display it. We assign an initial value to the text, just in case text isn't going to have a we need to have some sort of value or variable declaration for the text. I then iterate over the item node list. So item is the magical variable that gets passed into this script, which is a node list. I can run a Dojo query, which is exactly the same syntax that we're using here for query. This is just a Dojo query, which uses CSS3 selector syntax. I can say, okay, from within this entire node list, give me everything except for the subfields that give me all the subfields that do not have a code equals 4, which is the subfield 4 type. And then I iterate over that list. So the list is another node list that's been returned. Iterate over the list and add in the text content of each of those subfields in order. So again, effectively, we're appending all the text together from within that data field and returning it for display, but we've stripped out the 4 subfield. There are probably better ways of doing this, but you can use this way and it works, so that's good. And if someone wants to show me a better way, I'm even happier. Yeah, so that works. I haven't really worked out a good way to suppress multiple subfields within the same data field. You could do a variation on this, but it hasn't come up as something that we need to do at this point, so I haven't gone that far to actually work that out as a pattern. So that's one of the most advanced pieces that we've got, which is in some ways really simple. And again, you can cut and paste this code for any field, subfield combinations that you want to use and display. So I'm hoping that's the takeaway for the most part. So as I said at the start, we support the other formats, metadata formats that Evergreen can produce. Today, Evergreen uses marcxml as its source format, but it will produce on demand things like mods and FGDC, double and core, variations on double and core for things like RDF. So if you prefer to work with just say the double and core or the mods representation, because it's got a simplified approach to displaying the data you're interested in, then you can add the data type attribute to say data type equals mods 33, say for mods, get that back and iterate over the mods XML that's been produced. Bib Template is smart enough, and again, all credit to Mike Rylander, Bib Template is smart enough that it only returns it makes one request per metadata format that you've requested within that particular record display. So if you have 30 rows and they're all using the marcxml-full format or marcxml format, then it's only going to request that particular file once to iterate over. if you ask for marcxml-full, and you ask for mods33, and you ask for RDF, say DC, and you're using them in multiple spots in your record display, then it's going to make 3 requests. One for marcxml-full, one for mods33, one for RDF DC. So there is a little bit of overhead every time you add another metadata format to the display. And you've probably seen it sometimes in looking at a display of subjects, say in the default display, where you might see a small delay when the initial record loads and then the subjects load after. So that'd be a caution against possibly maybe mixing formats. But of course, we're libraries, so marcxml-full is probably what most people want to use. I say sadly, but that is what it is. Now, marcxml-full is a variation on marcxml, which again, Mike is to credit for the generation of this, and it's incredibly useful. marcxml-full takes your marcxml record, so record, leader, subfield, control field, data fields, and then for the scope of the for your search scope, say you're searching at a system level or a particular branch level, it's aware of the scope and will create a set of XML elements that contain the call numbers that are visible within that scope, the copies that are visible within that scope, attributes for the copies like the barcode, whether they're holdable or visible, statuses, locations, the circulation library name, the short name for the library if you want to show that as well. Any copy notes that are attached to it, any statistical categories that are attached to it. In this case, I've used an example where there are none, as well as the URIs. So if you're using the asset URI approach for making your electronic resources visible in your catalog as a scoped approach, which I don't think we've documented particularly well, but you can add a 9 subfield to your 856 and put a short name in the library that owns that, or where that electronic resource should be visible in terms of the scope. Then it will populate this URIs entry with the URL that the person can click on to then view the electronic resource, and it affects search results by scope as well, which is really, really handy. So if you're using marcxml-full, that then gives you access to all the visible holdings for that particular bibliographic record entry at that particular scope which you're displaying. And yeah, if I can get our internet access working again, I'll show you an example of where we're putting that to some significant use. Kevin Beswick is working on that, which is pretty cool. So the CSS3 selectors, these are probably the most two useful attribute match operators. So just tag equals is going to be an exact match for the value of the attribute that you're checking. And tag caret equals is going to say start with a left truncated sort of search for tags that match the start of that value. So if you're looking for all of the various subject heading fields, you could do tag equals caret equals 6, and you'll get the 600, 610, 611, 650, 655, etc. If you just want to group them all together as subjects. Now, we did that initially, and then I was asked to break it out into very specific, granular, field by field by Mark 21 specification approach. So that's what we've ended up doing.